snake's body. It's kind of weird. Reminds you of the Idaho jackalope, where they put a jackrabbit and an antelope together, a jackrabbit with antelope horns. Anyway, Budge, his correlation here is really interesting that I wanted to share with you. He says, the wedge-out eye can be equated with some divine food, the chef-out food. He says, this can be compared to the nectar or the ambrosia of the gods. It's the food that the gods eat. He says, it reminds him of, it grew in the field that reminds him of the Elysian fields of the Greeks as well. This chef-out food is connected with the eye of Horus, the pupil of the eye of Horus. And in the pyramid texts, it's often associated with the celestial food, which is made of light. Food made of light. Light is the eternal substance. Light is the good substance. Light is the life substance, you see. So this food is associated with that. He even says it must be a celestial food made of light, or some say it's the product of the mythological olive tree. Isn't that interesting? In some Jewish legends, the olive tree is the tree of life, while I believe it's the fig tree is the tree of knowledge. That's an interesting congruence, isn't it? Fascinating. This female serpent deity, so it's a female serpent deity we're talking here. She is sometimes depicted in the form of a serpent with human legs and arms, and sometimes with wings also, because she carries in her hands one or two vases holding food and drink for the deceased, as well as the wedge-out eye. It's fascinating to see that Nekeb Cow is... Now we're getting into a female-male element within our hypocephalus. The hypocephalus itself is considered a symbol of the pupil of the eye of Re, of course. Yes. We're talking regeneration here. We're talking an immortality, an eternal life. Let me go get another source. I'll be right back. It's a really good one. You'll love this one. Hey, I'm back. This is Raymond Faulkner's The Ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead. It's a very excellent text. In spell 163, this is the spell. This is to prevent the dead man's corpse from putrefying in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They made a big deal about this because they wanted the immortal part of mankind to join back with the mortal body in an eternal resurrection. So this is very important. He says this. This is on page 158. This is the Austin, Texas Press. It's edited by Carol Andrews, just so you know. It's an outstanding text. It's got wonderful, wonderful photographs, too. It says, words to be spoken over a snake with two legs. There we go. That's our figure. A sun disk and two horns over two sacred eyes, each with two legs and wings. In the pupil of one is the figure of him whose arm is raised, and the head of Bess with two plumes, whose back is like that of a falcon's. The idea here is to renew the man's limbs, to prevent him from putrefying, rotting, disintegrating, and completely disappearing. He shall, on page 160, he says, he shall not be repulsed from any portals of the netherworld. He shall eat and drink. In other words, he's going to be alive here. This is a vitality, a liveness, an eternal liveness. No complaint shall be raised against him. See, in the judgment, if people had complaints against you, it counted against you. But because he has this wedge-out eye presented to him by the serpent, he's safe. It's a protection. Again, it's a protection. No enemy shall profit against him. So it protects you against your enemies. If this text is used on the earth, he will not be exposed by the messengers who attack those who commit wrong in all of the earth. His head shall not be cut off. He shall not be destroyed by the knife of Seth. The knife of Seth, when Horus fought Seth, because Seth was the enemy of Horus's father Osiris, Seth had a knife. And what happened was, in the process of Horus and Seth fighting, in the great fight, Horus lost his eye. So it became a symbol. Restoring that eye became a symbol of making a part into a whole, into making something that had been harmed into something alive again, bountiful, beautiful, living, vivid, powerful, protected. The eye is one of the most important Egyptian symbols in all of the symbolic iconography of the ancient Egyptians. There are 4 wedge-shaped eyes in our hypocephalus, the round figure. And since that also represents the pupil of the wedge-shaped eye of Re, there's 5 wedge-shaped eyes. The emphasis is very important here. He says, he shall enter the tribunal and come forth justified. He shall be preserved from the fear of wrongdoing which exists in all the earth. Joseph Smith identified this as the grand key words of the Holy Priesthood. That's a pretty good identification, in my opinion. That's a pretty good match. No, he didn't exactly define and give us all the background to the characteristics of the wedge-shaped eye. He gave an overall summary of what it was, the grand key words of the Holy Priesthood. Anybody who studies LDS theology is going to know that the grand key words of the Holy Priesthood have everything to do with the resurrection and immortality of man and woman. The joining of the humanity to the divine. See, the ancient Jews had this idea. The ancient Jews had this idea that when there is a stirring below, there is a stirring above. See, the Hermetic doctrine, as above, so below. Absolutely. Now, in the Egyptian idea of the sky, overhead sky, the cosmos, and then there was an underworld where the dead went. It is all united through the course of Re, the sun. That is what we join into. We join Re in his eternal life. And Re, of course, his eye, is our facsimile number 2, the hypocephalus. It's a fascinating combination of symbolisms and religious iconography and details. But to get eternal life into the cosmos, to become one with the Father again, is the grand key words of the Holy Priesthood. That's how Joseph Smith would have understood it. That's what he said. As revealed through the heavens in the form of a dove. Now, there's something really interesting I have about this idea of the form of the dove I'm going to share with you. Hey, before I get to the analysis of the dove, however, I do have a couple of Egyptological sources on the hawk as a messenger that I want to share with you. This is from Robert H. O'Connell. This is in the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology for 1983. It's called The Emergence of Horus, an Analysis of Coffin Text Spell 148. O'Connell is showing the discussion between Horus and Isis, his mother. It's on page 75. It says, I am Horus the Falcon, who is over the ramparts of the mansion of the hidden of name. My flight has reached the horizon. I have surpassed the gods of the sky, so that I have elevated my place more than that of the ancients. So my place is far from Seth, the enemy of my father Osiris. I have traversed the roads of eternity to the dawn, and having ascended in my flight, there is no God who can equal me. So now I may show vengeance against the enemy of my father Osiris, that would be Seth, who will be set under my sandal. I am Horus, born of Isis, whose protection was within the ovary. I cannot be attacked by the fiery blast of your mouth, nor can what you say against me reach me. What O'Connell notes here is that Horus has ascended, he has transcended all of the other deities as the Horus Hawk, because he as the, let me see if I can get this, he as the messenger of the gods